Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is another Thursday night here, and it's time for us to talk college football on rotogrinders.com on our College Football After Dark show. I am Dan Bach, and joining me each and every Thursday, I kind of felt bad this week because he tweeted out that he was ready to indulge in some great pie, but said, I got some daily fantasy to talk, some college football. David, Headchopper, Kaplan. I'm sorry, Chop. I did not mean to break into your pie eating time, my man.
It's okay, man. But if there's one thing I've learned in life after all these years, don't rush your dessert. So it's better left sitting up there on the countertop for another hour rather than just rush it down. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree with you, but I'm a little curious of this, though. Like, is this, like, sugar-free apple pie? Because you're married to, like, a brilliant nutritionist, eating healthy. And when you said pie, I kind of sat there and said to myself, like, wife out of town or something? Like, what, you can splurge on pie?
You know what? A couple years ago, I stopped eating I'll eat some straight sugary desserts every once in a while, but more or less the things I eat they don't have sugar in them. When you cook the apples just the right way, number one, they give off their natural sugars, and that's what makes it good. And plus, I kick it in with a little cinnamon and Truvia, a packet of Truvia, which is a low-calorie sweetener, and it's just delicious, man. You can't beat it.
So no a la mode, no vanilla ice cream on your pie?
No, I don't. I'll indulge in that every once in a while, but not on a weekday, man. That's best left for like the weekend, like when you're really just in a good mood.
I like it. All right. Well, we're here with you for the next hour, and we're here to make your life a little bit easier playing daily fantasy college football this weekend. And hopefully you enjoy this show. We love doing it. I honestly think it makes me a better player hanging out with Chop for an hour, kind of talking things over, and hopefully both of our information you find useful. And I got to tip my cap, even though I'm not wearing one, to you last week, Chop. Big week for you. I saw last week on FanDuel took down the late tournament over there. So congrats, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I got lucky on a couple of teams last weekend. You still always look back at it and you see like the mistakes you made and go, damn, why did I do? If I wouldn't have just done that, I could have had a really, really good day. So I always look at the mistakes. The mistakes hurt worse most of the time than the good plays feel. I don't know how that works like that, but you kind of remember the mistakes. I'm just trying to make up for it this weekend and maybe not make any mistakes and just pound it, man, because this stuff doesn't last long. In college football, we only got about 13, 14 weeks or so. Then it's gone, man. After Thanksgiving, kiss it goodbye.
Yeah, it is. It's a sad, sad thing. And that's what kind of makes the first thing I want to talk about a tad bit disappointing here is FanDuel this week with their pricing. I don't know what happened, but I'm extremely disappointed in them. It almost seems like their algorithm didn't even run this week or ran incorrectly. You had players below the $4,500 minimum. You had guys who scored 5 and 7 touchdowns a week ago. Salaries go down. So I don't know what happened over there this week, and I kind of elaborated a little bit on my podcast that, we only have so many weeks here. This isn't like baseball where you miss a day of salaries, you screw something up, so what? You've got a schedule every single day for the next 6 months. For football, certainly college, we're limited in the number of weeks we have, and I think they really missed the boat this week. And even though guys like you and I might take advantage of newer players, I don't think it's good for the site to kind of have mispriced as many games as they did this week.
No, I mean, I can understand DraftKings doing it for the $1 million tournament. There's some strategy there,
Yeah.
with 94,000 people coming on the site to put in teams. But for FanDuel just to drop it in the middle of the season and just drop the ball like that, it's pretty sad and inexcusable. But just got to buckle down, and maybe if there's a silver lining, maybe some guys come in and play, and they say, wow, this ain't so hard. I'll make some good teams, and I'm going to score some good points here, and they come back for more after that, and they get hooked on it. But otherwise, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, and hopefully, they'll change it up next week and kind of pay a little bit more attention to it because I think it was just probably more of an oversight than anything, but hey, you only got so many weeks, so let's get it right. Overall, though, we're going to talk all about the main sites here, FanDuel, DraftKings, in our analysis here today. You can obviously reach us on Twitter as well, and we'll try and help you out there. We'll get some chat questions later on in the show, so definitely hang in the chat with us, and we will talk about those. Obviously, we got to start with the odds. That's where we always go here first, and we got some really high total games this week. Several games in the 70s. You got A&M and Mississippi State at 7.5. Marshall and Old Dominion at 76 points. That game is on the schedule this week. A few other ones to look at. You got Buffalo and Bowling Green at 77.5. North Carolina Clemson a little bit lower at 67.5. And then you go out west, and of course California and Washington State is at 76.5 points. So any game that gets into that 70s territory, you're very smart to get some exposure to those players. So we will obviously be paying close attention to them this week. Chop, let's just start position by position and start rolling at the quarterback spot here. And again, both sites kind of differ a little bit in terms of the way that I think we're going to approach things here this week. So we'll kind of start with FanDuel. And, I've heard a lot of people like Dak Prescott this week. And I don't hate Dak Prescott this week, but I don't think I can justify paying 11-2 for Dak Prescott on FanDuel this week. I know you can do it. There's plenty of value out there. But I'm not sold on that salary this week. I think that's too high for him. Your thoughts?
Well, if you're attacking a GPP and you want a shot at like one of those 40-point quarterbacks, he's worth a shot in that kind of a situation. As far as like making a solid head-to-head team, it's debatable. It is a high price. But he does offer like some incredible upside in this game. Just from what we've seen him do this year, his points per game in just about every outing, and then you factor in this is A&M coming in with a weak defense and possible shootout. The limit on him is through the roof. But then again, like you said, it's a high salary. I fancy him as a GPP play this week, but I have no problems with anybody who wants to roster Dak Prescott at all.
Yeah, but I mean the thing I'm looking at though, you're talking about a guy who hasn't thrown for 300 yards this season. He's had 3 100-yard rushing games. Scored a touchdown in each of the last 3 games as well when he's rushed over 100 yards. So he brings a lot to the table. Don't get me wrong. I mean, heck, he's gone over 40 fantasy points in 2 out of the 4 games this season. I don't know. Maybe you call it a hunch this week, but I think A&M's going to come out a little bit more ready to play this week. I mean, this is a huge statement for them. I think people, believe it or not, even though some people are saying that they deserve to be in the Final Four, I think that the more that I've been hearing is Prescott, and I think A&M comes to play this week. So I think he has a good game this week. He might get you low 30s, but I don't think we're going to see a 40-point week from Prescott, and 11-2 in my estimation. That's what you kind of need from him. But some other guys I really like this week. I think this is the week Rakeem Cato kind of has one of those real crazy good games. He's going against Old Dominion, who does have an offense, and if you look at Cato, there is some cause for concern. He hasn't thrown for a lot of yardage this year. His attempts are way low. Hasn't gone over 32 attempts in a game. But the opponents have been really weak, and I think this is the first real matchup for him where it's going to be a close game, and I could see him maybe accounting for like 6 touchdowns to this week. I know that sounds nuts to kind of make that proclamation, but I'm feeling Rakeem Cato this week.
Yeah, he's in my upper tier of quarterbacks in that particular slate of games. That's for sure. He's got all those things working for him that you mentioned. Specifically, and the things that really interest me the most is that Old Dominion can actually score the ball. Like you said, that's all he needs. Most of these guys are just a slave to the competition, and what is the competition gonna do to keep them involved in this game? And in this particular game, I could really see Old Dominion putting up 30 points. 28 points. Anything in that range will keep Cato in this game passing into the fourth quarter, and that's all you need. And he's one of those guys that does have that 6 touchdown upside.
And he hasn't had that much at all this year to be able to play into the fourth quarter. So I think he's going to. Give me the stat line on Shane Carden this week. What do you think is going to be?
Oh man, that's about as tricky as it gets this week, because I could really see this game being such a blowout at halftime that now I say this and it's kind of odd, but if the guy goes out and throws for 300 yards and rushes for another 20 and throws for, let's say, 4 touchdowns, that sounds great, and in the NFL that's fantastic. But in the college, when you're spending this much money on a quarterback, you're actually a little bit disappointed in that. If you look up and you see Cato, went for 406 touchdowns, or Bryce Petty went for 450 and 5 touchdowns, and I could see Carden getting yanked at halftime or in the third quarter, or just straight running the ball after halftime, and him not reaching like that big threshold that he needs to get for that $10,000 salary. So I'm a little bit nervous on Carden because the competition, it's at East Carolina. It's a 40-plus point spread. Those things really scare the heck out of me for spending that much money on a passing quarterback.
Yeah, the question is, does he go Kenny Hill and only play 2 quarters, or does he go Trevon Boykin and play 3 quarters? Boykin put up gaudy enough stats. Obviously, he has a much lower salary, but even if he was $10K last week, I think he was probably close to 40 fantasy points. So I think he's a tough roster this week for the reasons you said. Almost, it kind of sounds crazy, but almost a better cash game than tournament, because you know it's not going to be a shootout. You know he's not going to be slinging it late into the fourth quarter, but I'd say his floor this week is like 320 and 3. Like, that's his floor, I think. So that's pretty good. Even for 10K, you're going to get that. I don't think that, in terms of a tournament, though, I'm not sure if that's the way I really want to go. Okay, a few other names. How about Heineke across from Marshall? I don't like the 9,100 on FanDuel necessarily, but he's sporting a pretty nice little number on DraftKings this week. I believe it is 77K over there. I think that's a great play on DraftKings.
I got a chance to watch them the last couple of weeks because they've been in the player pool, and I've been really impressed with their offense in general. They've got 2 really good wide receivers, and we'll get into those guys later, but he's got 2 nice targets. It's a pass-happy offense. They're at home. They're going to be trailing in this game to Marshall, who should score at will, which means he'll be throwing like you may get into the Connor Holiday, 60 pass attempt range, and that's what you're looking for. When you're sitting as an underdog in college football at about 17 points, which is where they're at, that's like perfect for the passing game of that underdog right there. So he's a sneaky good play. You look in a tournament and there's nobody is going to know his name, so he won't be very heavily owned. That's a big benefit right there.
I definitely agree on him. Kenny Hill, you like him on the road?
I'm passing this week. I felt like last week, he just got lucky almost to salvage that line. And Arkansas, I can't really compare the defenses yet because I haven't seen enough of them, but I would got to think Mississippi State is a stronger defense than Arkansas. And I felt like Hill really struggled, man. And he's lucky that game got to overtime and he got an extra touchdown out of it. He just didn't look that great. After those first 4 weeks, everybody was ready to anoint him the next Manziel, but boy, I didn't see it last week, so I'm probably passing this week, man.
I think he's in play on DraftKings at 79. FanDuel over 9K. I think I'd rather have Heineke for cheaper than him, and Winston at about the same price as him. So from that standpoint, I think I'd avoid him on FanDuel. And the problem with Kenny Hill, though, that I think I'm running into, too, is there's absolutely zero handcuff that you can put him with. There's no one wide receiver that you can put him with and be like, okay, he's going to throw 5 touchdowns and this guy's going to have 2 or 3 of them. There's no way. They've got like 6 wide receivers between Pope, Seals, Noyle, Kennedy, Reynolds. I mean, the list goes on and on. So that actually kind of bothers me a little bit, at least in rostering them in a tournament where I think that's a very kind of viable strategy and sometimes pays off. So FanDuel in particular, I'm kind of off on him. Okay, what's your feelings on? Let's just jump right into it here. Bowling Green Buffalo. You know, this is the game that so many people are already talking about, and I saw a tweet out by you earlier this week that said you don't like James Napke. I don't know how you don't like James Napke, but you said you didn't like James Napke. Explain to me and our fellow viewers why you don't like this Bowling Green QB.
Well, it's not that I don't like him. It's just that I was questioned about the top 10 list. And when I go down my top 10 quarterbacks for the whole day in college football, I just can't bump any of the 10 out to fit him in there because I'm just not 100% sure what I'm going to get out of him, as opposed to, like, I have guys like, that we mentioned, Cato and these guys in here who I'm fairly certain I can get what I can get out of. Napke, he's been solid so far. I mean, obviously this total is off the board, and 77 is just nuts. But there's a fear that maybe Travis Green comes in and gets a whole bunch of that work. I don't know. It's not that I don't like Napke. I wouldn't not play him. I wouldn't suggest he's a bad play. It's just he's not in my top 10 for the overall thing, for the overall leaderboard on Saturday. But he's a fair play. I mean, anytime you get a game like that they say is going to be a ridiculous shootout, you got to look at all facets of it. The problem I'm stumbling across is that if I roster people from Buffalo, I'm rostering guys that I really have no clue who they are, and I'm just basically looking at ESPN game logs to figure it out. And that's a really helpless feeling because I've been burned by that quite a bit. So That's the only thing I have a problem with in that game.
And we'll talk about the running back there for Buffalo because he's going to be a good talking point here. Joe Licata for Buffalo could be a sneaky play this week. His last 2 weeks not overly impressive, but he did put up a 35-point spot against Army, I believe, in Week 1, 401-5. Last season against Toledo had a 497-4. So he's somebody that I think you're going to get nothing in the running game from him. Everything he's going to do is via the pass game. And, I mean, honestly, anytime Vegas puts that kind of total out on the board, you've got to kind of look at all facets of it. I would never play him in kind of a cash game, but if you want to go contrarian in a large tournament, Joe Licata at least has a track record of a few games on his schedule where he would more than make value on his 7,200. Honestly, though, Napke, I wouldn't even hate him in a cash game for the price that you have to pay at below 7K because I think he's proven they're going to chuck it around. Travis Green, I'm not as sold on him as maybe you are. I'll talk about him in the running back session, why that is. But I think they want to throw it a whole bunch. I think the average points is like 80 points a game in Bowling Green's games this year. So they run a ton of plays, and you obviously want quarterbacks from that kind of high-paced game. But the other guy on FanDuel in particular, and even on DraftKings to a point, he's only, I think, in the 7K range over there. Deshaun Watson versus NC State. We actually neglected to talk about him last week. Kind of felt bad after that. After we did the show, I was like, how did we not talk about this guy? But he gets NC State a week after destroying North Carolina. 6,300 on FanDuel, another kind of lower-tier quarterback who I think his probably floor this week is 303, and at 6,300, you'll take that all day long. You agree on Watson as a cash game play?
Yeah, Watson's a fine play, and we actually did touch on him for about 5 minutes last week.
Oh, did we? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, sorry. I guess I shouldn't have felt bad.
No, the name was out there, and if you wanted to take him, I mean, obviously, as good as you think he is, you couldn't have projected a 40-point game right off the bat like that. But the name was out there. If you played him, you played. A lot of guys in that particular slate were on the Rogers kid from the other team, freaking Tyler Rogers from the other game. He was in the same price range, but we mentioned Watson, so. I don't know. Watson, he looked phenomenal in that game. Now, that game was against a team that looks to me like they've given up on their season. So I'd like to see it again. I know he's a very good play. NC State, that's a tricky little. I think they're a letdown game because they just faced Florida State and they took Florida State to the wire. So you could have a team come in that absolutely is just rolls their helmet out on the field and doesn't give a damn, and that could work in Deshaun's favor. It could work against him if it's a blowout early, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's in a good spot this week.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's a tough fade with that at that kind of price point that you're going to run into. All right, so those are some quarterbacks. Give me some other. I mean, obviously there's a late slate. Connor Halliday. I mean, both the late slates are kind of low in terms of the number of games out there. I got a tough time not putting him on a team. I mean, it's hard to do maybe because you want to roster some other places, and he costs a lot. But each of the last 2 weeks, Cal's given up like 13 touchdowns or something. I mean, Halliday seems almost like a lock for 4 with a potential of 6 or maybe even 7 in this game.
Yeah, and in that late slate, you don't have as many options. So he's definitely, I mean, if he's not number 1, then he's a close second behind Brett Hundley. It just depends on what kind of flavor you like there. Yeah, in that particular slate, there's Holiday, there's Hundley. There's a guy that's sitting down a couple of $1,000s below them named Gunnar Kiel that not a lot of people know about from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Now, Memphis is a tricky, sneaky good defense, but I still don't think that they have enough firepower to hold down Cincinnati. And the problem with Kiel is I don't think there's a particular handcuff for him if he wanted to go tournament. So I think he spreads it around a lot. But just as far as playing a standalone quarterback, Kiel will save you a couple of $1,000s, and he might put up similar numbers to Holiday.
Yeah, I like Gunnar Kiel mainly on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think he's one of the higher priced guys, but on FanDuel, his price hasn't come up enough, and he's been a really steady performer. I mean, he went on the road at Ohio State and put up gaudy numbers. So 8,600, I guess his number has come up a little bit. Do you prefer him or Jared Goff of Cal in that game that's got a huge over-under?
You know what? Those guys you could like blindfold and just look, or I guess you could blindfold yourself and look at stats, but I think when you look at stats at the end of the day, they're going to be incredibly similar. Both going to put up big totals, and they both have like a plethora of weapons that you really can't decide on one guy to take on from either wide receiving core to handcuff with them. So I think they're both in the same boat. And on FanDuel, there's a $100 difference. If you're going to put me into back me into a corner and make me take one, I'd take Goff. But with that being said, Kiel could go for 5-6 touchdowns. You just never know.
I'm going to give you a crapper quarterback early session DraftKings. And actually there's 2 here. First off, for Northern Texas, Dejon Williams against Indiana, 4,500 on DraftKings this week. I'm assuming he's mid-salary on FanDuel. I'll have to look that up real quick. But he's somebody who, let's see here, he is not even available on FanDuel, so you can't even get him there. But 4,500 on DraftKings. The spread in that game is only 2 touchdowns, so I think they can keep it competitive. He is the quarterback against that bad Indiana defense, so tournament play only, but if you need savings and you want to take a shot on a guy, he might be somebody to look at. The other one that I want to talk about here is, well, first off, Nick Marshall on Auburn in the late slate is ridiculously cheap this week, Chop. I mean, at home against LSU, I don't give a crap that it's LSU. He's way too cheap. I think he's like below 6K or something. For me, he's almost a must-play in that slate.
On DraftKings, yeah. On FanDuel, he's priced up to $9,000, so that's probably an avoid because you could get Goff or Kiel for lower. But yeah, Nick Marshall. I mean, it's a scary proposition to go against LSU, but he's a good. It's just the old debate. Like, do I want the value from a top-notch player being underpriced, but do I want to risk, getting your quarterback spot is so vital, man, on DraftKings. You get two of them, and you really want to nail both of them. If you nail both your quarterback spots, you can finish in the top 10 in a GPP. I like him. I'm not. I don't. I mean, I just wish it. I wish it was under 6K against a little bit stiffer of or a little bit better opponent than LSU. Scares me a little bit. I got a feeling, and we're going to get into the running backs, but I got a feeling this is a Cameron Artis-Payne game.
Well, let's do that. Let's segue right now into the running back spot. And Artis-Payne is, I think he's one of the more underrated running backs out there. Not a lot of people talk about him. But he gets a lot of work in this offense, and you know what? One thing that shows me that he can be good is Trey Mason was so good in that offense, and he's like fifth string on the Rams. He can't beat out Benny Cunningham and Isaiah Pete and a whole bunch of other guys. He's way down that depth chart, so I think it's kind of a system situation out there. I don't know if I love him against LSU, but I guess he's somebody that you could probably look at just a little bit this week, but you seem to like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this particular game, I'm looking at Vegas, and they seem to think that Auburn's going to score some points in this game, 30-plus points. I don't think it's going to come from the pass. I think it'll come from the run. And so if you got it, I mean, this is going to be maybe like the first game all year long that I can remember, maybe the very first game of the year against Arkansas, but that was a blowout too. This will be the first game that he actually stays on the field the whole 4 quarters maybe. I mean, he was in there against Kansas State, but Kansas State has a very tough defense, and he got shut down in that game. I think LSU's a tad bit overrated on defense this year. So I kind of like Cameron Artis-Payne to break out in this game.
All right, number 1 running back. Who's your must-own this week?
Let's see here. If I'm talking about the early slate, I don't see how you can get away from Melvin Gordon as being the number 1 running back overall again, because those 5 touchdown that 5 touchdown game he put up a couple weeks ago, that's commonplace for him in a game against Northwestern where he'll be on the field the whole game and it'll be competitive.
10-8 on FanDuel, though, I don't know. I agree on DraftKings all the way, but 7,700 is low. But 10-8 when you got Coleman at 97, Gurley at 93. I mean, you're saving 1,500 from Gurley against Vandy to Gordon against Northwestern. I'm on the Gurley or Coleman train there.
Well, the thing about Gurley is you're looking at a 34-point spread, and with Gordon you're looking at a touchdown spread. So that tells me Gordon has the higher probability of being in that game all the way through. And when I went to go make some rosters, I just found that there's no reason not to go super expensive at running back and grab 2 studs, because everything else kind of just falls into place with some of the errors that are out there this week. I just don't see how you don't just pay for top notch. Forget about price, okay? Forget about price. How do you rank them? Do you want Gurley, do you want Coleman, or do you want Gordon as your top overall back with no price included? For me, that's Gordon, and for me, spending an extra $1,500 whenever I can grab 2 minimum salary wide receivers, pretty easy. I mean, I'm going to make that happen every time.
Maybe Chop. I don't know.
Tell me who scores more points this week, Gurley or Gordon?
For $1,500 difference.
I didn't say 50. I said no money, just straight points. What has the better chance of putting up one of those monster running back games? Gurley with a 34-point spread, and we just saw.
Okay, here we go. You know what? Screw it. Gurley better than Gordon this week. You call 34-point spread, but that's Troy. This is against at least an SEC opponent. I'm convinced that Georgia probably wants to get him the Heisman Trophy, and you know what? The only way that's going to happen is if he has 4 or 5 touchdown games. And honestly, I don't know why Sony Michel, whatever the hell his name is, got all those touches against Troy. That was ridiculous. Slapping Todd Gurley's face. I don't have a problem with him this week at home. I think both of them are fine plays. Coleman against North Texas is a fine play. I guess they're interchangeable, but for me, and maybe you've got min salary, wide receivers coming out of your rear that you love that I don't know about, but I'm going to save that extra $1,500 and upgrade somewhere else.
I just to me it just doesn't 1,500 just doesn't is not enough to sway me off of a guy that. See, personally, I think Gordon is the superior play, and it's to me it's not even close because I'm looking for like I don't want to say consistency. They're both consistent, but I'm looking for something that really sways me one way. And to me, a touchdown spread. And I've seen this thing with Gurley, man. Yeah, they want to get him some stats, but if they really wanted to get him the Heisman, he would have at least got a touchdown against Troy. They didn't even let him get a touchdown. He ran the ball like 7 times, and he was out of the game because they know he's fragile and that he's prone to injury. So I get a feeling that if I'm looking at the two, and there's a $1,500 spread, I'll spend the 15 because I'm pretty sure Gordon is going to go the whole game. With Gurley, I'm just really scared of like a 10 touch performance, and then he's out. Could be wrong. I mean,
no, that's a fair. I mean, that's a fair reasoning. Like I'm not doubting that, but I think I'm going to have more Gurley than Gordon this week, at least on FanDuel. DraftKings, different story. But you mentioned paying up for your top quarterback or top running backs this week. The flavor of the week here on FanDuel is Anthony Taylor at 5,300 on Buffalo. I mean, you can fit a lot of really good-looking rosters together when you throw him on your team, especially if you pair him up with Deshaun Watson. But you basically kind of hinted towards you haven't seen it, so you don't trust it. So I'm guessing for you, you'd rather go cheaper at wide receiver than roll Anthony Taylor versus Bowling Green. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. A guy like that, in an offense, it's more like the offense. I've never seen a Buffalo game, so I really don't know what kind of style they run. I don't know what they're good at. Are they a running team or are they a pass? It could be like if you had never seen an Army game before, and Army comes in against the worst secondary in the nation, but you don't know who Army is, and all of a sudden you're loaded up on Army, passing guys, like you're going to be screwed, right? Well, that's kind of like how I feel with Buffalo. I've never seen them. I don't know what they run. Haven't done a whole lot of research on Buffalo to this point, so I'll get some more on that. But I have no problem in a GPP playing a guy like that. Just for me, like in a cash game where I'm going to string together like 50 teams and use the same lineup in those 50 games, I kind of prefer to go ahead this week and pay for Coleman and Gordon, or Gordon and Gurley, or Gordon and Linwood, as opposed to going cheap on running back. But I can see the merit there. Everybody seems to be talking up Taylor, so there's got to be something there.
Okay, let's move on to some more running backs this week here, Chop. I am kind of off Travis Green a little bit this week. I know he's in that high total game versus Buffalo. Not a bad game last week, 20 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns. But I've actually watched a lot of these games, probably the last 2 of the last 3 weeks against Wisconsin, Indiana. Not a whole lot versus UMass, but this Coppett guy, or Copper, or whoever he is, the backup running back, starting to get some carries there. And Green is good, don't get me wrong. I think he's more of a tournament play than a cash game play for me at 6,800. I think it's too middle ground. Either go up and get the big names, or go down and get the Anthony Taylor kind of punt play. I don't see a point in kind of going middle tier, and he's good, but I'm not totally all in on him. What's your thoughts on Perrine this week? He was a must-own a few weeks ago if you wanted to win any sort of tournament. Ran for 242. I mean, he had, in 4 touchdowns, he had a 48 fantasy point day. He gets TCU on the road, though. Does that automatically mean, like, put an X through him, not interested?
No, I don't think that means that, because I think TCU's, first of all, they're very untested. They have not faced a decent game this year. I mean, they've had 3 cakewalks, so we don't know really what they're made of. And from the past couple of years, what we've seen out of them is they are a little bit susceptible on defense, and they have lost their 2 best defensive players either before the season started, just before it started, or during the course of the year. So we don't really know what they bring. And you just said the guy put up a 40-plus spot his last game we saw him. Keith Ford's not coming back this game. Alex Ross is like a 1 or 2 carry a game guy now. It's Perrine's show at least for another week, if not more than that, if not going forward the rest of the year, who knows. But it's his show. You got a game that's, I mean, Vegas doesn't really respect TCU too much. They're giving Oklahoma credit for being able to score around 31 points in this game. Trevor Knight's not He's not doing it for me. He put up a dud the last game, and he's not really that great in the first place. I have no problems with Perrine. The only problem is he's that middle ground kind of running back that you were talking about. And do you want to use up a spot on one of those guys, or would you just rather go really cheap or really expensive? So that's just a strategic call. But there's no problems with playing Perrine this week if that's what you wanted to do.
Okay, a couple of guys I like on DraftKings. Desmond Rowland at 4,200 against Iowa State. He's been getting 20-plus carries a game. He's their goal line back. He's a big back. They're huge favorites in that one, and I think Rowland's a guy that's underpriced on DraftKings. And Mark, what's your thoughts on the kid from Virginia Tech? I'm reading a lot about Marshawn Williams. Pretty cheap on both DraftKings and FanDuel, going against North Carolina this week. And I guess one of their other running backs got hurt last week, so the backfield's his. Is he somebody that you've got rostered this week?
Do not have him as of yet. He's kind of like on that. I'm on the fence about him. Just not completely sure what to expect. I know that I forget his name, but their other back did get hurt. But then at the same time, they have the running back who started last year is just now coming back into the mix. So I just don't know how if are they going to really let him go for more than 18 carries a game. He's been getting around 14 to 18. Are they going to let him go for more than that, or is it just going to be one of these things where the other two guys behind him come in and pick up the slack there? So for those reasons, I'm a little bit iffy on him. If I'm in that neighborhood and I want a really cheap back, it sounds weird because I thought I was done with this guy last year. I didn't want to play him no more, but you know, they used to have 4,500 used to be the minimum salary for like running backs and receivers, and for some reason there's a flaw this week, and guys are listed below 4,500, and one of those guys down there is a guy named Akeem Hunt. Now,
I've got him sitting. I got the game log sitting right up. I was just about to ask you about him. I can't. I'm looking at this log, and I know it's Illinois, but I don't think I can do it. I don't think so.
I don't know. He's we know that the other guy who Mostert was the flavor of the month there for the first couple weeks, and then he just started fumbling the ball, so he's out. Now the coaching staff made it noted to the public this week that they want to get Akeem Hunt more carries. They want to get him more touches. So if you're one of the guys who follows stuff like that, and you think that leads to more production, then I mean, he might be on one of my GPP teams. He's 4,500. It's just for a starting running back going against Illinois in a game where it should be competitive for all four quarters, and he's a passing game running back anyway. It's worth it. It's worth the gamble.
Yeah. What's his number on draft? I think he's more in play on DraftKings. 4,600 over there. I mean, that's not great. I don't know. I'm not sold on Akeem Hunt. I mean, I used him a little bit last year. I think I caught lightning in a bottle once or twice on him, but 4,400 is a cheap price. But I don't know. I'm not probably going to go that route too much here this week. Okay, a few other names to talk about here that might draw interest from people. How about these Alabama running backs? Derrick Henry has gone over 100 yards, I think, this last game, and he's still pretty cheap out there. On FanDuel, he's 6,600. On DraftKings, all these Alabama backs are pretty cheap over there. What's your take on that game? Do you just avoid it because you think it's a defensive struggle, or do you take advantage of this running back value? What's your thoughts?
No, I don't think you avoid it. I don't really see it being a major defensive struggle. I mean, Alabama, I thought Alabama had the potential to be a big defensive struggle, and they shot completely down. Both teams were scoring points right and left, and Alabama was doing it through the air and on the ground. So, if Mississippi comes out and they decide we're going to just shut down Amari Cooper and the passing game, then you can look for T.J. Yeldon and Henry to have some huge monster games because Nick Saban's not scared to just feed them each.
I mean, 4,400 for Yeldon is insane on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you look and say, okay, now's the week. You load up on him in a GPP because this is one of those weeks where he goes off for 2 touchdowns, and he's gonna do that this year. It's just when, and this might be the week, man.
I like it. I like Ole Miss's D though. That's the problem. I mean, I think DraftKings actually, I think they got it right on this salary because it's tricky. Because I would never have played him if he's 6K. 44 makes him tempting, but I really do think Ole Miss is legit. Home game, in the public eye. I mean, remember Robert Imdechki? How do you pronounce his name? I screw it up all the time. Number one prospect went to Ole Miss. They had the best recruiting class, I believe, that season, and those guys are starting to really turn it around and show how great they are. And I buy into this Ole Miss defense, absolutely. We'll get into Amari Cooper. I'm not in on him this week, and I think that's the reason why. But they are tempting me to take Yeldon, or hell, even Derrick Henry at 4,100 this week against Ole Miss this week. I mean, both those guys super cheap on DraftKings. So good job on pricing of those guys, because I don't think it's a given, but because I think that Ole Miss could easily shut them down. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm struggling with that one. Okay, anybody else? Who else? What other running backs you liking this week? Throw me some other names out there.
In the late slate, I'm looking at a guy like Daniel Lasco for California. Seems to be a guy who's stepping up to be the number one running back in that offense. And if that indeed is true, that's a huge score because the running backs in this particular offensive system have been known to put up some monster years. So I'm keeping my eye on Lasco for California against Washington State. I might play him on a couple teams this week just to make sure. But if he has another good game this week, you can pencil him in for the rest of the year as being the number one guy, and that'll be huge. So Lasco for California. And maybe on that late slate, the price is a little high, but I'm feeling like the best running back might be Javorius Allen for USC. There's not a lot of games going on there. I think Abdul is priced way too high for having to face Michigan State. Some of the other guys I'm not completely sold on. I think it's a blow-up game for Allen because Arizona State can be had on the ground.
Okay, I'm gonna give you one total random name that most people. You got your pen and paper? Because we always do this. You got your pen and paper here?
What you got?
Memphis running back Brandon Hayes, 5K on FanDuel. Ezekiel Elliott went freaking bonkers versus this Cincinnati defense last week. And their number one running back, Dorland Dorcas or something like that, is out. So Hayes should get all the work this week. And even a couple of weeks ago against Middle Tennessee State, went for 21 carries, 99 yards. So at 5K, he could be a kind of cheap crapper over there on FanDuel that can give you some salary relief. What's your thoughts on this Kansas State running back, Charles Jones? Pretty cheap, 5,700. I had no exposure to him last week and kind of regretted it afterwards. He had a couple of touchdowns there. Texas Tech, boy, they suck against the run for sure. I don't know. Maybe this is back to Jake Waters week. I don't trust Jones at all. I probably, again, won't have him. But the question is, do I get burned by him again this week? Your thoughts?
Charles Jones is a touchdown machine. And if you value touchdowns, then put him in your lineup. The price just isn't moving up enough on him. I mean, he's 5,700 still on FanDuel. Like, he's a solid play. Texas Tech is bad against the run, and Kansas State wants to run. The thing about Jones and the reason that makes him so valuable with the touchdowns is that anytime they get inside the 6 or 7 yard line, he comes in to be the quarterback in the Wildcat. And he never hands off and he never passes it. He just runs it. And they get in, like, I want to say, like 80% of the time, he ends up plowing his way into the end zone. That's why he gets all those touchdowns. He's the Wildcat quarterback. So, I mean, I don't see that going away anytime soon. If they get inside the 7 yard line against Texas Tech, they'll run the same play for 3 straight times, just like they do every week, and he'll rack up another couple touchdowns. So, I have no problem with Charles Jones, man. He scored 3 of them last week. He did me pretty well, for a guy who was near minimum salary on FanDuel, and the price just hasn't risen enough to stray away from him. Texas Tech is putrid on defense, man.
All right, two things for you before we move on to wide receivers. Jay Ajayi, you get him in your lineup, has a big bounce back game this week. And Jeremy Langford on DraftKings and other sites that are very kind of performance oriented. Fantasy Feud, for example. Get him in your lineups. He's really good. Finally went over 100, and he's going to do it again this week versus Nebraska. I like him a good bit this week. Not sure on FanDuel. Price is pretty high over there, but DraftKings for sure. Okay, let's move on to wide receivers here, Chopper. And, this is an interesting week because you've got your high-end guys, especially on FanDuel, they're not that high. I mean, Cooper at 86, Spruce at 78, Green at 77, White at 75, Hardy at 73. I mean, all those guys I think are the best plays this week. And with how much value you can find even at running back or even at quarterback to a point, or we'll touch on some wide receiver, you can get them in. So how are you ranking your top-end wide receivers? Because as I talk about in the playbook with STL, a lot of these guys, Green, White, Hardy, in blowout situations. So how do you rank them?
I mean, just based on everything I've seen here this year, I don't see how Nelson Spruce can't be your number one guy going into a weekend whenever the competition isn't like a top-notch defense, and I don't consider Oregon State to be that top-notch. The game's at Colorado. I'd always going to have to play Spruce as the number one guy. Now, whether you want to pay up for him or not, that's just based on performance, not necessarily value. But I think Spruce is your number one. I mean, the last time I saw Amari Cooper, he was absolutely going crazy in a game I didn't think he would do that against Florida. So you're down on him, but I'm not down enough to keep him out of, let's say, my top four, right? I mean, I think he's a top four guy. Just going into the weekend, I mean, obviously the results, you never know what could happen. The guy I'm looking at, this is all early slate, so I'm not even talking about late. The early guys, the guy Kevin White, he's the one who intrigues me the most because he might be the best wide receiver in the nation, just physically. The whole spread thing there, it does scare me. The game is at West Virginia, and it is a really bad team they're playing. That scares me, but just physically, that guy he's impressed me more than anybody else this year. I think he's a number one, a first-round wide receiver when he decides to come out. So I'm keeping my eye on him. He'll be in my lineups. The big spread does scare me off, but he's probably my number two guy behind Spruce.
Yeah, I'm kind of off Cooper for I believe in Ole Miss's defense, and 8,600 on FanDuel is pretty pricey. I think he's way up there on DraftKings as well. But it's so hard to pass on a guy who's basically gone for 12 receptions, 13 receptions, 8 receptions in a game he didn't even play very much against Southern Miss, and then 10 for 201 and 3 against Florida. I mean, they are just forcing him the ball, and the history of Kiffin is to do exactly that. If you look back at his time as offensive coordinator at USC, he fed the number one receiver. That's all he did, and he's doing it once again here. I am just a believer in this Ole Miss defense. I honestly think this is going to be a lower scoring game. I think it's going to be like 24-21. I think it's going to be close. So I'm probably off Cooper again. If he goes nuts, probably have a losing week. I'm with you on White. I don't think Holgerson is going to kind of let off here. And White's been incredible. 9 for 143, 13 for 216, 10 for 173. The guy gets volume, he gets deep balls, and scores a touchdown in 5 straight games. So I really kind of like Kevin White, even though the blowout is a bit of a problem. Spruce, on the other hand, the funny thing is, I don't know. I mean, against Oregon State, he's done it week in, week out. He kind of came out of nowhere, though, here, Chop. Literally kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, I guess we got to buy into a guy who has 19 for 179 last week. I mean, there's no other way to do it, right? I mean, you have to.
I mean, I really don't think he came out of nowhere.
But he's zero prospect for the NFL.
Last year, they had Paul Richardson, and remember the numbers Paul Richardson put up when he was healthy. Yeah. And that was with no quarterbacking at all. eventually Sefu came in and was the quarterback, but he was a young guy last year. So that was Paul Richardson who put up good numbers. He's gone. Spruce was the second guy on that team last year, and I specifically remember Spruce having some good games. So now he has the number one all to himself, and he's just stepped up every week. And the quarterback play's been good. I don't think it's a fluke. I really don't think he came out of nowhere. Oregon State, man, that it's tricky, but I mean it's only a 7-point spread, and Colorado's the underdog, and that's good. Obviously, if your team is trailing and you got the wide receiver, you want them to keep throwing the ball all game, and they're going to do that anyway. I just don't see, if you're just ranking guys just on pure projection for what they're going to score, every week going in, unless it's against USC or somebody tough, I don't think you can keep him out of the top 3 anymore.
But here's the thing. Under 60, almost a 7-point dog. That stinks, dude. That stinks. That should be, not even in the 60s? I'm going to call it now. I've got Spruce in some lineups. I might take him out. That's I'm telling you, I'm talking myself out of Nelson.
Well, you like Kevin White, and that one's only at 53.
Yeah, but what are they favored by?
Well, that could work against you, actually. You're favored by 4 touchdowns, you might be out of that game pretty quick.
Okay, what are they projected to score, and what is Colorado projected to score? Let's look at that from that perspective.
About 26 for Colorado and 40 for West Virginia.
Okay, there's your difference. There's your difference. I don't know.
Well, how about Baylor? Baylor's only at a 57 also.
You can't touch Baylor this week. Norwood's coming back. Goodley's coming back.
In general, I'm saying as a team, like a 57, I can't go like strictly by. I think 57 is a pretty decent. Things that are in the high 40s and lower 50s make me a little bit nervous, but a 57 is pretty decent. They're at home. I think that favors Spruce a little bit. I'm not like all in on him because there's a lot of options and you got to spread it out a little bit. But it's just,
Okay, here's the call this week. Worst game of the year by Nelson Spruce.
Oh, well, come on, man. Look at his game log. It's not hard.
Hey,
he can have double-digit receptions.
I never said I was going out on a limb. I just said I'd call it. So, but okay, let's go with some more guys though, because there's a lot to talk about here at this position. Tommy Schuler, I think he has his best game of the year this year for Marshall against Old Dominion. He has, last year he would have 10 receptions in a game. This year, I don't think he's gone over 6. And he's had 4 in a couple, but they've all been blowout situations. So normally he's around the 9, 10 a game, and I think you get more volume from Tommy Schuler this week in this matchup versus ODU. So I'm going to put him on my list. Roger Lewis is the apple of my eye, Chop. I love me some Roger Lewis. Love me some Roger Lewis.
Well, he's one of those guys that I was talking about earlier. You can get a good, cheap wide receiver and, to spend more on running backs. How many good games in a row does this guy have to have before FanDuel decides to bump up his salary one bit? He's still sitting at $5,600. It's ridiculous. They're giving you that one, so take it and run with it. Just hope he's not like 90% owned.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah. He's kind of a gimme this week, but I love him this week. A few other names to talk about. I'm all out on the Baylor wide receivers this week. There's just too many of them. Goodley did pretty well. He's not a terrible price on FanDuel. I think he might be in play over there, but I'm not interested. Devontae Allen, just looking at his number from Marshall, 4,800 this week. That's really cheap for him. So you might want to kind of consider him a little bit in that matchup. Give me a few other names you're looking at. Wide out.
Well, you mentioned both the Marshall guys, Schuler and Allen, and if that game's going to be a shootout like you think and you're going to go with Heineke, I wouldn't have a problem if you wanted to stack both receivers from Old Dominion with your quarterback. That would be Antonio Vaughn and Zach Pascal, and they're 1A and 1A. They're both extremely good. Zach Pascal is maybe more of a the PPR guy, and Antonio Vaughn catches more touchdowns, but in any format, they're both good, and if you think that's going to be a high-scoring game, then you get on it. If you're sitting up there and you think Cardin is going to have a huge first half and you think he's going to throw for 5 touchdowns, it's got to go to somebody. And My suspicion would be Justin Hardy this week. He's been kind of quiet for the last couple of weeks. If Harden comes out and grabs 350 and 4 touchdowns, I got a feeling he's got to be in that mix somehow. I mean, you could always go the cheaper route and go Isaiah Jones, but I think Hardy is just a better player all around, and I'm usually going to put my money on the better player in general. If you want to go the cheap route, I'm fairly certain that Victor Bolden is out for Oregon State again, and if indeed he is out, I think we saw the beneficiary last week was Richard Mullaney, who came in and caught a lot of passes against an extremely tough defense. This week it's not a tough defense. It's at Colorado. So if he's going to go out there and grab another 8 catches for 100 yards again, and that was against USC, I wouldn't have a problem playing him against Colorado at all. If you want to go super cheap, I mean minimum guy, this might throw you for a loop here, so buckle up. I don't even know if I know you've heard of this guy. I don't know what your opinion is, but Illinois, Geronimo Allison is a solid receiver, man, and everything points to him playing this week, and everything points to Illinois scoring points. So I wouldn't, for like 4,600, that's an absurdly low price for a guy who's had some big games this year.
I'll throw some other guys out late slate here. Anybody on Washington State's in play? Craycroft has been incredible, very consistent. He and Maley are the most consistent guys on that team. The Cal guys you might as well ignore. There's just too many of them. Jordan Payton has been awfully good lately, too. 6,100 on FanDuel and went for 151 last week, 104 a couple of weeks before that, 98 against Virginia, against that tough defense. So he's at 6,100. I
remember the last 2 years we would always, or a lot of people would at least they'd always stuff Shaq Evans in their lineup because somebody had to be the number 1 receiver for Brett Hundley. Somebody's got to do it. Shaq Evans is so good. Well, Jordan Payton is doing the things that we thought Shaq Evans was going to do the last 2 years, and he never did. And Payton's doing them very well. I mean, he's on fire these last 3 games, and he's clearly the number 1 guy in that offense.
Another call for you. Tyler Lockett finds the end zone via pass this week. So, like him this week against Texas Tech, I think he's going to get in the end zone. Aguilar is at bat on FanDuel at 6,600. I'm kind of staying away from these Cincinnati wideouts. Just too many of them between Moore, McKell, and there's like 5 of them out there. So probably best to just go Gunnar Kiel if you're going to go any of those guys. What's your thoughts on the CSU wide receiver? What's his name? Rashard Higgins. 5,800 on DraftKings. Kind of went crazy the last 3 weeks.
He's looking pretty impressive. I mean, I really didn't expect him to have that kind of a game against Boston College because I kind of think they're a fairly decent defense. And he went out and had a big game, so I'm sold now. I mean, there's no other way around that. If I find a spot for him on my roster, then he'll be on there because I definitely believe he has the talent to make good on fantasy.
Do you have a favorite A&M wide receiver?
That boat's kind of sailed for me. We mentioned it earlier, like every game is so different. Malcolm Kennedy, we thought was a PPR guy, and he just completely got shut down last week. Ricky Seals-Jones was a touchdown guy. Now he's not getting anything. Somehow, how are you supposed to predict that Pope was going to come out of nowhere last week and get 2 touchdowns?
Like 4,400 or something this week too.
Like if I'm messing with Kenny Hill, he's one of those guys. I don't need to pair him with anybody. If you do, you're at risk of sinking your whole roster in the GPP. And so if I'm taking Hill, take him alone, and I won't mess with any of the wide receivers.
Mike Williams, 4,300, was huge last week. He won me some money in the late slate. I think he's going to be ridiculously popular. Just be kind of cautious with him. I mean, this is a young quarterback, and he went for 122 and 2 touchdowns, but the game before that it was 2 for 72, 8.2 fantasy points. It's not bad for 4,300, but it's not great either. So that was against Florida State, tougher competition. I like Mike Williams. I don't know if I'm going to go all in on him at that price. Give me more Roger Lewis, a little bit higher priced, but he's somebody who I know a lot of people are going to jump on the min salary this week. Okay, let's move on. Tight ends. Give it to me, Chop. Give it to me right now.
You going to play him? You're gonna
I'm
play.
going to play him this week because if I'm going to play some Rakeem Cato, I might as well play him.
Then if you'll be looking at a $3,700 salary on FanDuel if you want to roster Eric Fropenapel from Marshall.
And you know what? Did we not talk about his brother last week on this show? I believe we
We
did.
did. The
We did
quarterback.
make reference to him. I don't know if we said he was a good play, but we talked about him at the very least.
Yeah, he actually has. He might have more talent than his tight end brother, man. You know,
He
it's
went
what it's
crazy
looking
against
like.
Bowling Green.
Uh,
Fropenapel's in play, but tight end sucks. I hate rostering it, but we still got to
yeah.
do it. So it can make a difference. Though, I mean, if you get a guy who hits you 2 touchdowns, that is a monster advantage over your competition. So, anybody else out there?
I tell you, if you're gonna ask me if you had no salary cap at all and you wanted me to pick who I think is the best tight end going in the early slate, it's Dan Vitale from Northwestern. I think they treat him like almost like the number one wide receiver a lot of the times. But the problem is you don't want to spend $4,000 on a tight end, no matter what the situation, because they're too inconsistent. So if you're going to punt one, I'll give you a punt right now against Illinois. Justin Signs, minimum salary on both sites, slightly above minimum on DraftKings, but he's got as much potential to grab a touchdown as anybody else.
Well, Sam Arneson has had touchdowns in his last 2 games, 3 out of his last 4 for the Badgers. Now, he only had 1 reception for 1 yard, but it was a touchdown, so you got the
Yeah,
6 points for that.
he saved a lot of our days. That we're looking at a big goose egg at tight end, and he got 1 catch for 1 touchdown. That's all you need, man. Hey, you can't be greedy at tight end. Take your 1 touchdown, 1 catch, and be happy
Go
with
home.
it.
Absolutely. Western Kentucky UAB is actually a good game to use on DraftKings this week. I think that Western Kentucky tight end is back, and by the way, I didn't mention Leon Allen. I love me some Leon Allen this week. But he's somebody to look at over on DraftKings as a potential play because of the high-scoring nature, certainly, of that game, the kind of offense they run. I don't mind Evan Ingram this week going against Alabama. I think they might be thrown in that game a little bit. They don't really have a running game, so Ingram in this sort of big stage could be a good spot. Cam Seringi of Wake Forest. Sorry, Cam, if I screwed up your name, but he's been pretty consistent. 5, 6, 7, 5 receptions the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, actually I've rostered him a couple times this year. He's a pretty good player. I mean, there's not a whole lot on that offense that they're going to do anyway, so he's more or less like the best wide receiver they got. So, yeah, you take that. In the late slate, I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Alan Cross from Memphis going against Cincinnati. He's in the late slate over there. He's probably my number 1 tight end on the board, to be honest with you. Plays for Memphis, goes against Cincinnati. He's a really good player. If you want to go a little bit less, and he's only 36, but if you want to save 300 more, I think the next best option on that late slate may very well be Josiah Price from Michigan State, who seems to get quite a bit of action in competitive games.
All right, that is pretty much going to wrap us up here on College Football After Dark. We thank you so much for checking us out. You get some Headchopper on Saturday mornings in our expert chat, only for those of you who subscribe to our incentives material. How's that going, by the way? I don't ever check that out.
It's hectic, but it's an hour kickoff. We end it 30 minutes before the game's kickoff. So whatever time zone you're in, it's 30 minutes. It starts an hour and a half before kickoff. It ends 30 minutes before kickoff, and it gets hectic, man. So I do my best to answer all the questions, but hopefully I give some good advice. For the most part, I think I do the best I can, and hopefully you win some money, man. Just come on and stop by. I ain't got nothing else to do for that
there
time
you go.
period.
And if you're a cheapskate and haven't gotten the incentives, then you can just watch STL and EMAC do their Fun Day Saturday, or whatever the heck EMAC likes to call it, for Saturday mornings from 10:30 to 11:30. They are talking daily fantasy sports here on Grinders Live. But do think about getting our incentives. I promise you, you'll find them very, very site-specific information for you. You got guys like Chop and A25 Smith and Hester's and STL, just loading you up. You got our expert rankings, which are pretty awesome to look at. So hopefully you give them a look in consideration. And hey, it helps us out if you enjoy this kind of programming here on Daily Fantasy here in Roto Grinders. Please don't hesitate to use some of that even subscription material that we do offer. Chomp, let's hope one of us finishes near the top again next week in some of these GPPs. But we thank you so much for your time here on a Thursday night. Go and enjoy that apple pie. Savor it.
My mouth is watering. My mouth is watering. Let's do this.
Now, do you heat this up? Do you put it back in the microwave?
I got to heat it up now. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, enjoy your pie. Everybody else, enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. And I'll be back tomorrow morning on the podcast and lots of Grinders Live action the rest of the weekend. Till next week, have yourself a great night, and we will see ya.